Let's look at this conversation around Africa becoming a visa-free zones, even for the other African countries. This conversation has been going on for years. Give us a background to what will be the impact of this and what will be the starting point. The latest country to give a nod to this is Ghana, who is also planning to ensure that this policy is being implemented this year. But why is it necessary for Africa to pursue this issue of visa-free policy with all sense of seriousness?
Well, there are two what I would call coordinating points. One, if we look at the Africa Union, and if we look at African Continental Free Trade, you can't have a united continent and then want to trade and not have visa-free access to allow trade to happen and to be successful. Secondly, you have to also look at the diaspora. We have in the African diaspora millions of our brothers and sisters, the Caribbean, North and South America, who want to come home, they want to do business, and you're having a block that stops them because they have to go through the whole process like Africans have to when they're going to the US or Europe and wait to be told when you're going to have a visa, if you're going to have a visa to come and meet with your brothers and sisters and trade and do business. It's not correct. So this is the step in a very right direction. Now, Ghana, as an example, did one very successful thing. I think it was 2 years ago. Operation Joseph. Operation Joseph allowed Africans in diaspora to come home visa-free and reunite with the continent. So Ghana has set an example, and it should be continued. I think maybe because they did that and saw the economic benefit. The economic benefit when they did that, I think ran into almost $1 billion in tourism. Now just think about the whole of Africa having intra-Africa trade under the African Continental Free Trade, and then having the diaspora come from the rest of the world home to Africa. The inward foreign direct investment, I'll call it African direct investment, because Africans spend a lot of money in the United States, in the UK, bring that money home. That shows us that we are now coming to the point where we are uniting with our money, with our strength, with our skills, and that's very important. So Ghana and all other African countries should do that very quickly. But we should also, like everyone else does to us, make it, mandatory for those that want to come into the continent now, not have the same free access. Yes, you give them access, but, it should be limited. But for our African brothers and sisters, it should be unlimited. As a matter of fact, they have a right to have a passport in any country, or rather nation state in Africa that they want to go to.
All right, good morning, Ambassador Wallace. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm having my Kenyan cup of tea. And of course, I've been enjoying Kenyan tea and coffee, so that's part of our Africanness.
Okay. Is it enough to just make it visa-free or make entry into African countries visa-free? What about the trade tariffs, the trouble with doing trade? Shouldn't that also go side by side with the visa-free entry that Ghana and some other African countries are looking to implement?
You're absolutely correct. If we have to trade, then we must remove tariffs, because we are now seeing ourselves as the African Union as one continent. So tariffs should be removed for ease of trade and for ease of doing business. In the last interview, we talked about ease of doing business in Africa. And that should be one of the very key points. We should remove tariffs and at the same time ensure that we are visa-free to travel both air, road, and train. Those are the infrastructures that we should be thinking about. We should be thinking of how easy it is in the United States. You will move goods from Houston to Atlanta to New York, and trade is booming within because America has a captive market. We Africans also have a very captive market. The whole of Africa, we are talking about 1 billion people. Could you imagine moving goods and services within the continent, just within the continent, among ourselves, how rich we as Africans would become? It is the answer to a lot of our problems that we are facing at the moment. Instead of thinking, do we look to manufacture for export? No, let's manufacture to trade within ourselves. Don't forget, before colonials came, we had Ubuntu, and we had our own means of trading among ourselves and bartering. So you're quite correct. We must remove that tariff that will stop the trade and ease of doing business within the African continent, because others are seeing it and they're coming and they're setting up, whether they have started already in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Nigeria, in Kenya. Others are becoming local companies to use their own products and services to take advantage of the continent's captive market. And we got to take advantage of that for ourselves.
All right. The issue of visa-free policy has been grabbing news headlines in recent times. In fact, the hashtag Visa-Free Africa has been trending. But aren't you worried about the security concerns? What are some of the challenges associated with this issue of visa-free policy?
Right, there are going to be obviously security problems. Like any other country or any other continent, you have to put in place security measures. One of the good things that we have now is that the technology now for ensuring that you can monitor and predict, security concerns is in place. It's a matter of implementing. It's a matter of getting the technology and putting it in place. So, for example, you want to track individuals. There are technology to track individuals. You want to track goods. You have points where your goods are coming in to a particular location. You have a station that is there to examine an X-ray, just like you do currently in customs area. You have areas where it is already secure for offloading, unloading of goods and services, and you have technology also available, even AI technology, to track individuals. So if individuals are on a system, you must have your ID, you must have at least some form of recognition, and there are recognition type technologies now that will help where that is concerned. Yes, Africa has been very porous as a continent. And I think building up a database of the ne'er-do-wells, those who are, the ones that we need to look into their movements, I think it is a concern, and we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track, from a security point of view, individuals and goods within the continent. It can be done.
Okay, let's be optimistic, and at the same time, let's look at the possibility of doing this. Considering the pockets of security challenges in parts of Africa, do you think going visa-free for all African countries is something that Ghana, for instance, is ready for at the moment? There is the ECOWAS bloc and then the ECOWAS passport. Should it be tried first as a regional thing before being opened to all African countries?
I think there are two sides of this coin, very much two sides to this coin. We can do rollout right, regionally. That way, we have started with one country, which is, let's say, Ghana. Then we roll it out into ECOWAS. Those are pilots. And then, after looking at some of the fallouts, some of the problem areas, some of the issues that have come up with the rollout, you are now, that's a learning curve for rolling out in other areas. I think, from my point of view, I think let's take little steps, start with one country or two, do the region. So in West Africa, you have ECOWAS. You know, you probably do the same in East Africa. Probably start with Kenya and then roll out to Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. And then you move further down south. Where there are hotspots, you put in place what we will call in security ring fencing. You ring fence areas where you have concern and ensure that you can meet the security challenges before you allow them in the rollout plan. So I think the intelligence heads, the security organizations have enough experience and expertise to work on, you know, minimizing the security concerns with a rollout program. But the united and the unity of purpose is essential.
All right, let's look at the role of the African Union here. For the past 30 years, the African Union has been making moves to ensure free movement within the continent. The issue of African Common Passport has also been on the table. What do you think should be the role of the African Union henceforth, or the starting point when it comes to the issue of having common African passport?
You know, the African Union has not been doing its job. You have 30 years to have, you know, tested the ground, tested the waters, you know, start a plan of action. And by now, the united continent would have had passports for everyone. And perhaps also a lot of the security concerns might have been minimized because people would have been moving. If you think about what happens in an area where securities are concerned, if people are moving, on the positive side, they are seeing opportunities. Most areas that have a problem with security is because they are not opportunities and people feel trapped. And that's why you see our brothers and sisters heading to the Mediterranean, going through the desert and getting themselves killed and murdered because they don't see any hope. They don't see any opportunity. And because of this, you know, they are willing to be desperate and leave their environment. But if within the continent they see opportunities and they can move freely, then that makes life a little bit easier from the point of view of security concerns. So on the downside, or rather on the upside, you can have a reduction in security concerns because people are free to move and take advantage of opportunities. Then the African Union would have been able to strengthen that passport, and people around the world, like you respect the American passport or the British passport, will now respect the African passport. Why? Because we have a continent that's full of opportunities. And people will say, well, they are not leaving their continent to come and occupy space in our America or our United Kingdom. We want to go and engage with them in partnerships. So you'll find that the respect for Africans would be there rather than individual countries where, you know, they stop you from Nigeria, they stop you from Kenya, you are limited to the countries you can visit with your passport, and all of them, you know, are singled out. The African Union is supposed to have created, you know, a common passport that is strong for the continent. And 30 years, and they've done nothing. It's a leadership, concern, a big leadership concern. Why haven't they done that till now?
As a follow-up to the visa-free entry that Africa is currently looking at, isn't it the right time now for a single currency for Africa?
I'm happy that you talk about that. I am actually working on that. It's called the Standard United Digital African Currency Contract, SUDA. And I can send you some information on that. We have been working on this for the past 5 years. And for the past 5 years, we've been testing the algorithms. We've been testing the transaction space. And we are now, just at the moment that you're speaking about this, my team is waiting to commence and have discussions with PAPS, the payment system, with the African Continental Free Trade Area organization, and the concerned stakeholders. So by pure coincidence, I'm actually working on that. A single currency, but it's a single currency contract, because we are looking at piloting it with the African Continental Free Trade Area, because transactions are the most important. Our SUDA has to do with being able to use the reserves, the products of our continent as the base for having a standard currency contract. And there's no better place for that to take off than Africa, because every single African nation has enough resources to back a common currency or a common currency contract. And we are actually working on it. I'll share it with you.
All right, that sounds interesting. Let's use this opportunity to extract this exclusive from you. And since you are the pioneer and you're part of the team working on this project, give us an overview of what SUDA is all about. How far have you gone? And then how is it going to work if perhaps this is being accepted generally?
Well, part of it is intellectual property, but I can tell you the team. We have Dr. Mark Hewitt, who was very responsible for developing blockchain algorithms for IBM. We have Dr. Yinega Desi, who was a former governor of the Central Bank of Ethiopia. We have Dr. Mark Dako, who is an investment banker from Ghana. We have quite a team, who are representing a Pan-African approach with financial dexterity, financial experience and expertise, and looking at the space. We also have an advisor from the African Development Bank, who is currently the president, Dr. Admasu. So we have put together the, what I will say, the movers and shakers in the financial space to understand what is required to ensure that you have a standard currency contract that can fulfill the needs of trading within the African Free Trade Area. And that's all I'll say so far on it, because it will be giving, away a lot of the intellectual property, which at this point in time, it will be remiss of me to reveal too much. But we have got to, I would say, the final stage.
Setbacks to the visa-free entry for all African countries, not just for Ghana, but as a continent. Recently, 3 countries pulled out from the ECOWAS, talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Niger Republic. Do you see that as a setback?
No, because first and foremost, you got to understand, what are they doing? They are breaking away from French control, and that's very essential. And all other French African countries who have had that colonial setback, because they have had a setback in their development by colonial interference from France. They are now going through the throes of removal from that influence, and therefore they are going to sort themselves out. They are looking at new partners. They are looking at uniting together as 3 countries who are probably being excised or being excised from ECOWAS. So they have to go through their throes of removal. It's not a setback, because once they've formed themselves into a bloc. They are also a trading bloc. They are also part of the African Union, whether we like it or not. They are still on the continent. They're not away from the continent. So they are brothers that have to be accepted when they have sorted out their problem. And their main problem has been France. Their main problem has been a colonial master who's been, exploiting them to the point of impoverishedness, and also to the point where all of their funds are being sent to a French central bank, and then it's now reloaned to them at high rates of their own money based on all their resources. Their lithium is sold at 0.01 cents, and then you are, selling it on the open market at $1,000, their gold and all the other resources. No, it's not a setback. We need them to finish their issue of breaking away from a colonial rule from France, and all others should follow suit. We need to get rid of neo-colonialists and colonial, who have been raping, plundering, and exploiting the continent. And we have to support them. We have to be there for them, and then re-embrace them when they have sorted their problems out. It's not a setback. It's a positive way forward.
Earlier, you were talking about the exit of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger from ECOWAS, and you were saying that others should follow suit. And I'm wondering, won't that send a wrong signal? And then how is it going to turn out for the continent? Because we're looking at the Africa as a continent now, how to ensure the issue of unity.
Family and blessing.
Maybe you need to shed more light on that so that we can get you properly.
Yeah, we are Pan-Africanists. Staunch Pan-Africanists have to understand and tell people the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that we have to break the chains of colonialism and neocolonialism. The continent cannot move forward if we continue to have that hold, that stranglehold on individual nation states within the continent by colonial powers who rape, plunder, and exploit the country, put us into poverty, and make us, even our own currencies and our own ability to move forward, useless. In the continent, we have almost 36 different currencies on the continent, and they are useless. The fiat currency are useless because we do not have a strong currency. To be able to have that, we must unite. To be able to unite, you have to break away from the stranglehold of colonial powers. Why should countries that have been under the French influence be paying to a central bank, enriching that country whilst their people are impoverished? So all others like those three countries should do the same. And that's what I'm saying. They should follow suit, break the yoke of colonialism and neocolonialism, because there are leaders who are just puppets of these regimes to continue serving them. How many of them have been killed because of what they did? Do you know how many attempts they've made on Traore? They killed Sankara, they killed others who wanted to break away from that. But now the youth of the continent is waking up and realize that they've been exploited. Why should they be heading to the Mediterranean, dying when their country is rich in resources? No, they have to break away. We have to be firm about these things. We can't play around with talking around the subject. I and others like us who are Pan-Africanists talk directly. This must be done. Whether it's Arikana, whether it is Pierre Lumumba, whether it's Julius Malema, whether it is Mafongo, all these strong current Pan-Africanists are saying the same thing. And we must continue the same thing. Our news must carry the news of, let's change the paradigm. Let's change what was the common item that has kept us back. Colonialism, neocolonialism, exploiting of our resources, impoverishing our people. They want to keep us at that level all the time. But the youth of the continent are now saying no. That is why you see now young soldiers, young leaders are saying no, enough is enough. Because one, they're educated, they're intelligent, they've seen what has happened to their parents, their grandparents, their heroes, and they are saying no. The continent is waking up. The continent has woken up. And now the continent is saying no. It is 75% youths on the continent that are saying no. They are the revolutionary base for this continent for us to move forward. You have to get rid of those who are keeping the continent back, whether they are puppeteers or whether they are colonial, ex-colonial masters. You have to deal with them. And we have to deal with them precisely. This is not something to play around with and to just, talk about it in a very, circular manner. Direct. Get rid of and move the people who are keeping the continent back. We must do it. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. Everybody, like China and others, had a plan. Where's our plan? Where's the African Development Goals Initiative? Where is it? We need to have, as a continent, yearly goals to move our people forward, whether it's food security, whether it's health, whether it's education. We need to have a common goal together. And that's where the African Union needs to change its leadership. And to change it, they must.
Now, just for the purpose of clarity, how do you propose that African countries break away from the holds of the colonial masters who still have a strong hold on some African countries, and even those who were trying to recolonize Africa in so many other ways?
How do you do it? All right, let's use some perfect examples. Let's use two. When the Americans wanted to break away from Britain, what did they have? They had a revolution, right? When China wanted to establish their 50-year plan on the Mao Zedong, what did they do? They had a revolution, and they put in place in every community a PLA, a People's Liberation Army within the community to protect the continent, their China, and to protect themselves. We've got to do the same. It has to be a reality that we protect our communities. We set up we call it African People's Liberation Army in the communities, and take care of ourselves, take care of our resources. It's a revolution, whether it's physical, mental, we have to do it. We must revolutionize the continent. It's the only way. We cannot have a few looting the riches, including the puppets who go back to whether it's to Paris or to London or to the US, and they, enjoy the best of the continent because they are sleeping with the colonials, with the exploiters. No, everybody must participate. I say that every community that has resources should be shareholders. If you're coming to our continent, you must bring value added. You bring training, you bring skills, you bring shareholding in whatever business you want to do. I've said it before in one of our interviews. And that's the way forward. You have to revolutionize your thinking. You have to revolutionize the way you do business as an African. You have to ensure that you move the continent forward by revolutionizing everything. The way you did business, the way you participated with the exploiters, the way you looked at your continent. You have to look positively, and you have to say, we can do it. How many people you see on an aircraft coming to Africa that are non-Africans? What are they seeing on the continent and the countries they are going to, or the nation states they are going to? They're seeing the opportunity, and they're seeing how well, and they've learned, all the other newcomers, they've learned how to exploit the continent. They've learned how to exploit the communities. They've learned that we should only be serfs and slaves. No, we are not. And we cannot continue like that. We've got to stop that nonsense. And the way forward is that we must take control of our resources, take control of our destiny. And it has to be that way. No other way. Revolutionize our thinking.
All right, let's look at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What influence or progress has been achieved by the continent as regards this area? And then what are the missing links as we speak presently? And what should be the starting point for us to get it right? What impact has this agreement brought to the issue of investment in Africa and also enforcing the issue of unity when it comes to business relations?
Right. Well, first to begin, the African Free Trade Area, I would say, is a work in progress. It's a pilot. It only started 2 years ago, if I'm correct, with most of the signatories. That was the 1st of January, 2022, or was it 2021? So it's a work in progress and it's a pilot. You are going to have a lot of areas to work out. And I think starting trade between ourselves, the missing gap is one of the things you talked about, and that is having a common currency contract. That's important because ease of doing business means to say that you have to be able to transact your business on one common currency. Everybody having different currencies, fiat currencies, most of which are useless in the continent. You can't talk to each other transaction-wise, and you must head to SWIFT or to the United States with some 20 or 22-year-old sitting down and decided whether to give you, trade access and exchange for your currency is a major hole, major gap. So that has to be fixed, which we are working on. But in the meantime, the growth of the ACFTA, one of the things has to be removal of tariffs that we talked about earlier. Then travel, ability to travel and move your goods and services, whether by road or by rail. Of course, you have some good air networks now, so cargo, but that is expensive. So we need to be able to do infrastructure within the road networks, the rail networks, to move things closer together. Of course, shipping is around the continent, and that has its, its problematic areas on the maritime side. But those who are on the same geographical position can also use shipping. So West Africa's shipping capability, that can be used very well. Those on the Southern African axis can do shipping as well. Those on the East African axis can do shipping as well. So maybe you set up, 3 types of shipping lines to take care of that. So ease of transportation is very key. Ease of doing business, and that is the ability to travel and move within the continent, is very important. And then, of course, movement of people, not just goods, but movement of people is important. So that's why the visa-free access, or no visas, as a matter of fact, and one common passport is very important. Of course, you raised the points about security, and as I said, you can ring-fence those security areas and deal with it. But there's technology to ensure that we can track both goods and people, which is already in place because people are doing it normally as, 55 different countries. Everybody has some sort of technology that they apply to be able to track. So maybe we have one common database for the continent, which can be merged and which can help with the tracking aspect. The goods, as I said, can be put into different, what we will call inland receiving points that have the ability to monitor what are those goods so that you ensure that it is not terrorists, bombs and guns, etc. There's technology for that. So those are the little missing gaps. But the ACFTA now is a work in progress, and it's a pilot that will get stronger once we have the right leadership and the right technology to transact business.